Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain here with Kenny Simpson. Coach, Christmas is over. There's 1,000 new toys in my house. I think we have to make a rule moving forward that kids don't get toys anymore. Just clothes. Just get them clothes.
No, I remember those ages. You know, ours are now older, so not as many gifts, and they cost a lot more. So you need to enjoy it, you know, kind of while you can. And I think that my wife used to do where she would collect a bunch of the old ones and store them and then bring them out, you know, about 4 months from now when your kids are bored with nothing to do and they think they're new, and just kind of rotate the toys. And those kids, you know, it's amazing. You start trying to put stuff and throw away or give away, how much your kids need that. So she'd hide them, you know, hide all the old toys for January and February when they're bored, bring them back out. But, man, you guys with young kids enjoy it, you know, because now ours, I think we're at the point where all three of them have realized that Dad has been paying a fortune and giving the glory to some fat man in a red suit for a long time. They know now that that's not there. So I actually got to sleep in on Christmas morning till 8 a.m. for the first time ever. So that was nice, but I miss them waking me up at 6 a.m. freaking out because what's under the tree. So you're in that mode right now. Try to enjoy it.
Yeah, I actually have to be careful what I say because
yep,
I'm in the house with me, right? So, yeah, it's a wonderful age, and our 3-year-old is just getting into the magic of Christmas, so he just thought it was so cool. I mean, last year he understood, but not as well. So Christmas is still super fun around the house. My wife makes it really, really good. She's like I walk in and it's vomited Christmas all over the house kind of person, you know? Yeah. She likes to decorate everything. And I'm completely cool with that as long as we have a plan to get it all out in time, right? Like I don't want to be staring at Christmas forever. But
this comes out your mid-January, so at this point I'm hoping our stuff is up. I love Christmas. We decorate right around Halloween, or not Halloween, Thanksgiving. But around January, I'm ready. I think we're all ready to kind of move on to what's new.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, you know it's postseason. What is this? It's mid-January when this comes out. We're are we still going to be playing college ball? I don't even know what the schedule is this year. This new 12-team playoff.
It may be just about finished up or about to finish up, depending on what day. And
then I finally watched some bowl games, and I watched a little bit of NFL this week. I've not watched any NFL games this season at all, mainly because I'm a Cowboys fan, and they are not doing so hot. I don't know how you do it as a Dolphins fan, man. I don't know how you tune in every week.
We're live. You know, we're live by week 18, which who would have thought that? 2-6 and went 6-2 to at least make it interesting. You know, I kind of thought, oh, we'll be eliminated. Now they're alive going into last week. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, but NFL is, you start getting these upper level games. I mean, I know a lot of our listeners are probably like, they like the college game more, and that's fine. NFL game is just a different level. Like, to me, two good NFL teams is a different kind of game. You know, and the college football is great. Love to watch it. Love to watch both of them. But you watch Joe Burrow at the level he's playing versus Patrick Mahomes, you're going to see some pretty good football.
So I got a question here. It's kind of off script a little bit. Talking NFL versus college. I mean, obvious differences there. In college, you can still be like hiding someone, honestly. There could be a kid that's not very good or just not up to the level he's trying to play. In the NFL, that doesn't happen, right? I mean, everyone is drafted or free agent, like you've gone out and paid money. Do you feel like the quarterback is more or less important at the pro level versus the NCAA level?
Man, that's a good question. I think that probably the NFL level, because I think that they're good enough defensively to make him do what he's not good at. Where like at the collegiate level, just get you a stud athlete back there who can run the RPO game and use his legs and run around a little bit. And it's not that he's not important, but I don't know if the defense is like similar to high school. You know, you get an elite level athlete. he can do what he wants to do.
Right.
Well, I think the higher you go up, and that could be college or the NFL, but they're going to make that guy make throws that are difficult for him to make. And so, to me, I would probably lean towards the NFL. But I don't think you're wrong either way. I think that's a probably good question. If you guys are listening on YouTube or whatever, it'd be a good comment one here to hear what your thoughts are on,
For sure.
But I do think that it's evolved. I mean, you see that at the high school level, and then it bled up to the college level, then it bled up to the NFL level. That every level now, that guy's got to be somewhat athletic. I think the age of 1, 2, 3, rip the ball out, that's going away. You've got to be able to do that, but what else are you bringing? If you're seeing those quarterbacks in the NFL that are like that, you got Jared Goff, you got Tua from Miami. Brock Purdy is a little more athletic than those guys, but still kind of the same mold.
Right.
But your elite level quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, how many drives are they extending with their legs? And I think that's just kind of taken over the sport. And if you're coaching now and you're coaching the high school level, I think at this point, a lot of guys have realized take your best athlete and snap that kid the ball and learn how to work with him.
For sure. I like as Michael Vick came along, and now we kind of have the Lamar Jackson version of that. And now you see Fields and Caleb Williams. Like there's these people keep chasing that Michael Vick prototype run around quarterback. I don't know that is ever going to catch on. I mean, Vic was 1 of 1.
I think I'd be able to do both. I'm older than you. I can go back to Randall Cunningham. The guys that are even older than I go to Kenny Stabler, but way back in the day.
Right.
I'm with you. I don't think just a straight running quarterback is going to be, because he's got to be able to sit in the pocket and make plays. And that's at every level. Like at some point, your quarterback has got to be able to be a quarterback. He's got to be able to throw the ball to other guys.
Right.
So Caleb Williams, those guys, I don't know. The Bears, if they draft you, you're going to suck. It's hard to judge those guys. I'd say Jaden Daniels. So look at Jaden Daniels' success he's having.
Yep.
That guy's, he's probably going to run for about 1,000 yards this year, right at it. He's also going to throw for that 3,000 or 4,000 yards. So that's a true dual threat. Joe Burrow, super underrated in how athletic he is. I think that's one of those deals where he's as good a runner as he can be, but he also throws it really well. But like you said, you can't have the Tuas, and you probably can't have the Mike Vick onlys that really struggle in the pocket. You got to find in the middle where they can do both. Yeah,
it's pretty interesting to kind of see as football gets back in a phone booth how important those guys are. Because when we spread everybody out, it made sense, right? There's always going to be that extra running lane, a gap that a quarterback's responsible for or can go take advantage of. I feel like as we condense everything back down in football, that might go away. I kind of look for that Tom Brady-esque player to be back in the spotlight. I'm interested to see where football goes. It's always evolving. We know that offensively, defensively, just kind of an arms race. So.
Well, even old school football, though, look at Army and Navy. Even those teams, their quarterbacks are really athletic. They're not throwing the ball, but they're the fourth running back. So I think it's, as you guys are designing your offenses, that's probably the number one conversation every staff is having is who's our quarterback, what can he do, what can we do around him. And I will tell you this, and again, listen or don't listen, if you have the choice between two kids that are relatively equal. You can't, they're all different, but if they're relatively equal, you're always better picking off the athlete. Always better picking the athlete than the one who's not as athletic, who spins it a little bit better. Assuming they're relatively equal. Now, if one kid can't throw it at all, that changes it up a little bit.
Right.
But if they're relatively equal, always lean to that kid who's an athlete. He's going to make plays that you don't draw up.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we came today to talk a little prevent defense and just what it is and how it works and whether or not we should be using it. So let's quickly tell us how we can simplify football for our coaching staff and our players, and then we will get into that conversation.
What's up, coaches?
I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. The longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. You're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for your that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, all right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Not really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Del in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
I appreciate that, Coach. I almost got ahead of myself. Before we get into the conversation today, let's hear the quote of the week.
Yeah, quote of the week, again, coming from Team Themes Volume 4. This season I may start rotating between other Team Theme volumes just to make sure we're using different ones. But this one's out of volume number 4, out of the section that's called Optimism, and it's from Vince Lombardi. I think hopefully you know who that is. He says, life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. Sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. The idea there, again, mind over matter. Vince Lombardi, a ton of quotes that talk a lot about the mental part of the game. So if you're looking for a good coach to kind of study, read a little bit, find some good quotes, Vince Lombardi's a great one. I think that's one of his better ones.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I hear that a lot right now. It's just that, what is it? Was it Yoda that said, it wasn't Yoda. Someone said can or cannot, like basically whatever one you believe is what will happen, right? Like, I can't remember even who said the quote now. Yoda's was do or do not, there is no try.
There is no try.
Yeah. There is no try. So, sweet, man. Let's quickly throw out these, talk about the clinics. I know that we have just came back from AFCA, or you have. I didn't get to go this year. I won't be able to make it. And you finished up your Charlotte clinic. What do we got in clinics after that?
Yeah, looking forward to it's cold. It's cold right now. So I booked one in Phoenix, Arizona, which is at this point might be full. So if you're interested in coming, I think there's a little bit of room left. It was already kind of filling up before Christmas. So who knows where it is now. But I think and I've got, ironically, a ton of dudes flying from northern states just like me. We go to Phoenix, they're probably going to golf and then, go to the clinic, but it's going to be really warm, nice place to be. After that one, the national clinic is in Arkansas. We're excited about that. Ton of defense at that one as well. I got some good speakers coming in also to kind of give their twists on how they're running the gun tee in their states. So it won't just be me. So that'll be a little different. And then we have Alabama, we have Ohio, we have Texas, all in February. And then in March, we had to move Seattle to southern Washington, so closer to Portland, but apparently in a town that's got a casino. So if you want to lose money and then gain knowledge, that might be a good one to come to. And then we've got a couple in April where we're going to do Wisconsin and Boston. And Daniel, I know you're coming to Boston, maybe Wisconsin too.
Yeah. I'm excited for that opportunity to speak at Boston. And if is it Milwaukee? Is that where we're going?
Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. Milwaukee stays and it comes to fruition. I think it'll be great. Plus, that one will be the better one. If you want to hear the better of my clinics, probably go to Milwaukee because
second time,
right? I've been through it once, so or who knows? Maybe I'll have that first time gold, and then we'll just fall off from there. No one knows. Headsets Magazine, assuming there is already one version has been sent out by now, and so if you guys are wanting to write, first of all, jump over to fbcoachsimpson.com/headsets and check that out. And if you want to become an author. It looks really good on your resume. It's great to write down your knowledge and put it out there for the world to see. What I think, the highest level of mastery is teaching something, right? So if you can go on and teach it to people, that shows kind of that you really know your stuff. Get with Kenny or me or Jamie, get with somebody about writing for headsets, but it's probably coming due for the February volume this week or coming very, very soon. So do that quickly. Sleep. Let's jump on here, Coach. So we're talking prevent defense today. Every year I watch someone win or lose a game because they use prevent defense. And I always wonder how it is that coaches choose whether they're going to use it or not. I don't know. I kind of have a foot in both worlds, right? Like I asked you before we hit record, kind of, what do you believe? Like, what are your thoughts, your philosophies? And yours was kind of like me. Like sometimes it's useful. But first, let's just talk about what prevent defense is. So what is a prevent defense?
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of situations. I mean, Nick Saban won a lot of national titles, but he lost one at the end of a game because the kids were confused on the coverage, blew a coverage, with not much time, and lost to Clemson, wasn't it? And so it was. You see it in the NFL. Washington wins on a walk-off Hail Mary. So there's always you see it at high school level all the time, where teams score on the last play of the game. And, when all you had to do was not let them get behind you. So there's a lot of examples of where games are won or lost right there at the end. And it's probably one of the least coached parts of the game that plays a huge role. A lot of times we might work 2-minute offense or a little bit of 2-minute defense, but how often are we working these 3rd and 25s or they've got 30 seconds before the half. How are we going to play this? Or they've got, last play of the game from, the 40. You have all these random situations where it would be good to have some kind of defense. We don't call our defense prevent, but that's kind of what we're looking at. Like to me, we call our defense like dime or nickel when we start bringing on different types of players. And there are games where we play the whole game in nickel because they're a 2x2 spread team and we want to get a 5th DB out playing outside linebacker. And then we have dime where we're bringing on, another DB. And so now we have 6 of them. So nickel 5 DBs, dime 6 DBs. So we have that already in our system starting in August. Like we have that. This is nickel, this is dime. These are the coverages we're going to run out of dime because we're only going to show dime, which basically is our version of prevent. We're only going to show this maybe 10 times a year. So we only have 2 or 3 looks we're going to give. Nickel, we might play this a whole game. So we want to run our whole defense with this look. If you're a team that sees a bunch of spread, you might want to have a bigger package in that dime world or prevent world, whatever you're going to call it. But for us, prevent defense is mainly the situation. Like, is it the end of the game? Because the clock becomes a helper to you in these situations. Like, you are playing the team, but you're also playing the clock. And there's a lot of situations where it can be a little different. Like, it might be a minute to go and you're up 2 scores. That's very different than a minute to go and a score from them wins it or ties it. That's a very different situation. So how you're going to play that could be very different. So that's why we're hesitant to call prevent. We do have coverages that we call that are more conservative. Like, we have different coverages that say basically we're not going to bite up on any route, and we're going to maintain depth with all 4 DBs, and we're going to buzz our outside backers out to take away the flats, make them throw the ball in the middle, and rally and tackle it, which I would consider that kind of a prevent looking look. But that's a coverage call for us. We can go from one play to a different coverage the next play, because you're playing against the clock in these situations. Or it could be a down and distance situation. It's 3rd and 25. They got a personal foul or they got a sack or whatever. They got to go 25 yards. So we have different coverage calls there, like sticks, super complicated, that basically say, like, do not jump anything that's in front of the sticks.
Play the sticks.
Right. If it's 3rd and 10, you're going 10 yards and not jumping anything. If it's 3rd and 25, you can imagine you're going to go deeper. So you have these little wrinkles in there that are in our normal everyday usage. So it shouldn't freak us out when your season's on the line. What's tough in these situations is the pressure. Everyone knows sitting at home, don't let them behind you. Everyone knows that. But it's a little different when your season's on the line in a playoff game or a big game or whatever it's going to be. You don't want to have something different.
Right.
And then for us, a lot of times we have another look we'll give for like the last play of the game, like the last play of the half, the last play of the game, where we have literally a 5-high look. Like, we're going to take and put another DB back there, and we're going to make sure if you throw a jump ball, we at least have 5 best athletes that are back there to go get it. So you got to have all these situational things set up. I don't know if we would ever call ours prevent, but essentially that's what we're doing. So I guess my long answer to your question would be, yes, we have some prevent things. I'm not a big believer of just living in prevent defense unless you're up by at least 2 scores.
Yeah, it seems like, well, for instance, and I don't thinking back, I'm not sure what defense Navy was in, but the OU Navy game was last Friday, the Armed Forces Bowl, which capped off a terrible season for OU. So it's just one of those years for us. But the last drive of the game, OU didn't do much offensively the entire game, but then the last drive, because Navy's playing a little bit prevent, right? They're a little bit conservative. OU goes down and scores, goes for 2 to win the game, and misses it, right? They miss out, and so they lose the game by 1. But it's that, what did Navy change? They shut us down for 4 quarters, and then they gave it up in the last drive. And so it's always, that's what you have to look at, I think, is like, are we going to allow someone to dink and dunk us down the field? And then now they're one busted coverage away from striking, because it's not a Hail Mary anymore, right? So I think you have to get into that conversation of, I don't want to get we're going to talk about this a little bit too, but what is prevent defense? I think you covered it already. Just super conservative. We're not giving up the deep ball. We're going to give you underneath stuff, rally and tackle. I think you covered all of it. So
one, I think too, I know we're going to hit the next one. You got to think of the level you're playing. Like, what level are you playing at? And I know that's coming into the next question. I don't want to lead too far into it, but you're playing against an elite team. You can't give them. You can't give them anything. You can't just hand them yards. That's just not real smart. Yeah,
you definitely have to take in consideration what they're good at. If you are playing a flex bone team, you probably aren't worried about this at all, right? If you're playing an air raid team, it changes things a little bit. Let's jump into the second question here. Why some coaches use this philosophy and some don't? Why are some people okay with prevent, and then some people are like, we just don't do that?
A lot of it's just mindset, more than likely. I mean, what's the coach? We're going to be aggressive. We're going to continue to be aggressive, or once that young coach gets roasted once or twice, he may kind of change his mind a little bit. Or, like you just mentioned, if you're Navy and you can go back and replay that game, that guy's probably going to be a little more aggressive. instead of as conservative as he was. So a lot of that's your experience. What have you seen get done? Here's just a couple things I have on it. To me, some coaches equate, soft coverage with, being super conservative and pressure. I think you can find a balance. Like, I think the best thing you can do defensively is be able to speed the quarterback's clock up in these situations. The worst thing you can do is let him sit back there and pat the ball 4 or 5 times. So, to me, I'm not a big fan ever of sending 3 guys, and playing real conservative in our coverage, because you're basically not pressuring him and you're playing conservative in your coverage. So he's going to have a big window to throw the ball in. So to me, that's kind of the worst of both worlds.
Right.
If you're going to be conservative in your coverage, that's fine, but we got to go ahead and get some kind of movement to get pressure on the quarterback, whether that's bringing a 4th player or a 5th player or running some kind of exotic twist or movement. We've done things with a right-handed quarterback before where we've sent all 3 pass rushers off the left side to intentionally flush him left and make him roll left and play one side of the field. That's not very sound defense, but it is in this situation when right. Kind of what they have to do. So I think you have to be intentional with how you're going to rush the quarterback in those situations. Like, that's your best friend in those situations, is speeding his clock up. Doesn't mean you have to send 7 guys or 6 guys, but you got to figure out a way to not let him play 7-on-7, like not let him be comfortable in this situation. I think a lot of coaches will ask the question, we got here because we played this kind of defense for, 3.5 quarters. Why would we change it now? And that's a real question you have to ask. And if the question is answered in a way that says, okay, that makes sense for us to change our defense, then you do that. Like, we're up 2 scores and there's 2 minutes to go and they're out of timeouts. That might be the time to have the conversation of maybe we should change it. Or, you've run your defense and they've scored 35 points. Like, it's not like you're really stopping them. Let's just slow them down a little with the clock. So there's those questions you have to kind of consider in those moments. If you're shutting a team down and you're up 7-0 because it's been a defensive struggle, and the last thing you want to do is just allow them to walk down the field on easy things. So it's just, to me, you got to know the situation you're in. And then the one Daniel and I started kind of alluding to is you got to figure out, what do these teams do well? Like, if you're playing, in my opinion, it's almost the opposite here. If we're playing a team that has struggled throwing the ball, am I going to let them throw a quick screen and get 12 yards? You see this all the time at the NFL level. It drives me insane. Playing a young rookie quarterback, he hadn't done anything all game, and now we're going to drop our coverage and let him throw check down for 10, check down for 10, check down for 10, and now, bam, they're in field goal range or whatever it is, and you gave it, you handed it to them. So to me, what are we going to take away and make them throw? Obviously, you don't want to force them to throw deep balls in that situation, but let's maybe take away the easy balls and make them throw those intermediate type throws. Can you throw a 15-yard out route? Can you throw some kind of dig, where he's going to drop that ball over top of a linebacker? Let's at least make him make those type of throws and be conservative with our back 4. But it drives me nuts to kind of see guys just drop everything out and hand it to him, or worse than that, an athletic quarterback who now you're dropping in coverage and he just takes off running for 10. So there's things you got to kind of consider in this. And in my mind, we let a lot of offenses off of the hook. And I'm a guy who coaches offense. I've seen it happen where we're not doing real well, and all of a sudden you're going to let me line up in trips and throw fast screen to my best player in a 2-on-3 look. Well, shoot, we'll take that, and we'll take that again, and we'll take that again, and we'll take that again until you take it away. So you got to kind of consider that as, don't all of a sudden breathe life into a team that's really struggled, because now you've gone away from what got you where you are.
Yeah, that's that prior experience, I think, shows up very quickly in these scenarios. And what I mean is, you talked about earlier, if a young guy gets torched a few times, by playing over aggressive. Now he's giving up a single shot deep ball that might force his hand a little bit into wanting to play this prevent stuff. And vice versa, if he overplays the prevent and is too conservative, and now a running quarterback's getting 15 yards of play, it kind of changed. I think with everything else, there's that slider, right? Am I going to be super aggressive or am I going to be super conservative? I think there is a call to do both, right? Don't give up, to stay on top of stuff in the back end, but we've got to get pressure. I really think it just kind of, you said mindset earlier, and I think we see this show up everywhere in defense. If you are a force the issue kind of guy, like this year I spent time with Coach Chris Cole down at Bristow, and his defense is very, hey, we're going to force the issue right now. And that's on every play of the game. Their mindset is you're not going to run the ball on us, and then we're going to make your quarterback make throws because it's very high pressure. And so if that's your mentality going into it, you probably aren't backing off of that very much at all, just because your fundamentals, your foundation is built on, we're going to hit dudes in the mouth at the line of scrimmage and see what they can do after that.
Yeah.
To where if you're more like, I call defense and I'm very set your heels at 5 and take what the offense, whatever the read tells you to do, right? We're going to read everything. And that's with all 11 players. D linemen are reading the O line. The outside backers are reading quarterback or mesh. Then, I'm going to be a little more hesitant to bring all that pressure because we've kind of made our money on just reading you and taking away whatever it is your guy tries to go do. Right. So I think the mentality there is definitely a key point.
Yeah. We switched this year, probably around week, 5 or 6. We went to more of, we're not going to let you throw screens and hitches and you might beat us, but you're not going to run the ball. You're not going to run bubbles or screens, and it worked well for us until we played a team who hit 4 balls over our head.
Right.
And they won the state championship. So going back to that game, maybe we should have been a little more conservative in that, maybe, but we might not have made it to that game had we played different. So I think it's always, like you mentioned, it's always situational in who you're playing. But I think if you better practice this stuff, like it's not just going to happen in a game where we're not going to ever change what we do, because it's, if your mindset is we're going to challenge you every play, that sounds really good until they have one play to win the game from their own 20. Like, is that the time you really want to be playing man zero and press bump coverage and give up a post? There will come a time even those guys need to have something in their bag that can, just be intelligent.
Yeah, it's situational, like everything else in football, right? There's no one answer. You've got to have more tools than one in the toolbox. You can't go through all of life with a Phillips screwdriver, right? You'll be sitting over there wondering why your Phillips screwdriver quit working. Let's get to the last part here, Coach, and just kind of probably get a little deeper here into everything we're talking about. But how can we utilize this prevent mindset without breaking our foundation? And I guess what I'm really talking about is, I understand that there's different defenses, and I call them balanced and unbalanced. Right? If you're a 3-4 guy, you live in that balanced defensive world. We got 2 high safety. It's very easy to drop into cover 4 from a 2 high safety look when you're balanced, because I still have someone setting the edge. I've not lost my force player to each side. We talked about it earlier. If the quarterback's going to take off and run, I've got a guy there accounting for him. But if I'm an unbalanced defense, if I run a 4-2-5 and my outside backer, who I've now replaced with a DB and tried to go cover 4, all of a sudden I'm a little shy on players somewhere, right? Like, I don't necessarily have that edge setter, especially, I'm a spill defensive guy. I want to plug inside gaps, even the 4-2-5. My defensive end is going inside of your tight end because I know I have a backer out there to set the edge. Well, now all of a sudden I don't have him anymore. So, without breaking that defensive foundation, I essentially just had to put in a 3-4 look and just get another guy out there, right? I can't live in my even front defense and play prevent, not without giving up, one side or the other. I could teach boxing to a defensive end real quick, right? And have one play ever that he's going to be the box guy, but I hate that's not good. I'd rather just bring on another DB that knows what he's doing. So kind of like, how do you think that we can live in our own world and keep our own foundation, but still have this accessible to us?
Well, I think the main thing, again, we're talking about basically playing a spread team. Essentially that's what you're playing, or a team that has a spread package. Because if you're playing a flex bone team, you really could have just skipped through this whole episode because it doesn't really change a ton for you. I mean, you may back your DBs up a little bit, don't give up the wheel, but pretty much you're not going to change your box or your interior integrity of your defense.
Right.
But most offenses now, even teams that are not spread teams, have a package where they're going to come at you with some version of 3x1 or quads or whatever it's going to be, whatever their version of it is. So in my mind, that's what we're talking about here. Okay. To me, I think you've got to have personnel groupings that you've practiced with and you're comfortable with. Like Daniel brought that up. If we're a 4-2-5 or we're a 3-4 team, but our two outside linebackers are real linebackers. We get in this world, we may want to get rid of that 6'2", 190-pounder and bring in the 5'5", 145-pounder that is your fifth DB, who's also kind of physical. Like we would do that and call that nickel. And then he has rules where he goes to the multiples or wide side of the field because he's our best cover guy. We got to practice that stuff. And this guy has to know, because usually this player for us and for Daniel or whoever else is going to be a backup at another spot.
Right.
He's not really going to be an outside linebacker. He's really probably a DB. So he's going to go with the outside linebackers at least once a week during certain periods so that he understands the base rules, the integrity of what we're asking them to do, so that he's not lost in these situations. Like Daniel said, he gets out there and doesn't realize, I'm the force player on this because I'm lining him up to trips and wide side. All of a sudden he gets put out there and they shift. He's got to know the rules. That's just kind of how it is. So whichever players you have that are going to be in that role, and it could be D linemen. I've had years before where we've taken off our 290-pound nose and brought in our third outside linebacker at a D end. And so whatever that is for you this year, and you need to be thinking about it now, those players need to go with that position group once a week. Because you may not need this week, but you might need it next week. You might need it the next week. So you need to be thinking about, okay, who are these guys that are going to have to play multiple spots for us, depending on the situation. We're really big on that at our school. We're kind of blessed this year to have about 14, 15 kids that we felt comfortable with playing defense against certain looks. Like we had kind of 9 guys that they were going to be out there no matter what. And then we had those other 4 or 5 guys that, hey, if we saw a double wing team or a heavy tight end team, this is our outside linebacker and this is our corner. If we saw a 2x2 spread team, it was 2 other guys. Right. If we saw a multiple team, then it was these other 2 guys. And so you need to kind of figure out what that looks like for you, because it may be nobody. So you just got to work the situations. Or you may have those guys that, okay, we need these specialty guys to do this. So if you're gonna do that, they need to go practice that stuff so they understand the base rules. Then you got to kind of figure out defensively, what stunts are we going to run with this grouping? Like how often are we going to run it? Are we playing in a conference where we're going to see a bunch of spread, a bunch of throwing the ball, or we think we're going to be good and we're going to have the lead in games where people are going to have to throw the ball? So if that answer for you is yes, you need to have probably this personnel grouping, and you're going to run it more than, say, a guy who's playing in a conference where they don't throw it much. You don't need it as much. You might need a different, like more of a heavy package, whatever that is. But whatever world you're going to live in, more than others, that's where you start putting in more stuff. Like we're going to have our base defense where we can run our defense. Then in our nickel defense, here's our favorite 3 or 4 blitzes that we're going to show, because we're only going to run this every now and then. In our goal line, we may have these 3 or 4 blitzes we're going to show. If we know we're going to play a full game or 2, like we know that this year, I know that already, we're going to play several 2x2 spread teams that are pretty good that we got to beat. Well, now our nickel defense, we may give them 6 blitzes that we're going to run, because we're going to run them more often. So we're going to put more stuff in with them. And then we're going to work it more that week, obviously, to make sure we feel good about it. But you also got to think about in spread offenses, are you seeing athletic quarterbacks? We had that conversation before we came on here. So what do I have in place for that guy versus the guy who's not a great athlete but a pretty good thrower? Like, what am I going to have a spy that we're going to be able to assign to this kid? Or is it going to be he's not a great runner, let's get pressure up the middle and flush him? So that's going to kind of play into what blitzes, stunts, fronts are we showing against this group. And again, you've got to have practiced this with the groups that are going to be out there. One of the little caveat I want to add on this, if you're going to run personnel packages, you better have a backup to that. Because what you don't want is you're going to run nickel, and Johnny is our nickel, and he's hurt play one on kickoff. So now we can't run nickel all night long. Who's your next one? You need to be thinking about those things and giving that kid reps too, so you don't have to throw out a whole personnel grouping because of that. You also got to figure out how much time you're going to dedicate to this. I kind of mentioned that. Like, are you going to see this often? Or is it going to be we're playing a team they really can't throw it. They don't want to throw it. So we're not going to show this a bunch, but we do need to at least work it one day, maybe for 5 minutes, in case we get into we're up 14 with a minute to go or 2 minutes to go, or we just need to work it anyway. So we got it for next week. Those are the things you have to think about as you're planning your practices and planning all this stuff.
Yeah, those are great points. Is that, how invested into this are you? I've been on teams that we probably didn't have enough invested. We had a hand signal that said, hey, this is a prevent down. And we told kids, like, you're going to drop to 15 yards or 20 or whatever, right? Don't give up the touchdown. But we never discussed, like, Coach, what if it's 3-by-1 and they shift over? Or what if they go trips to the boundary? Or, right, we never had all those what ifs, which I guess a piece of it is just don't let them get deep, then the rest will sort it out. But that gets back into that dink and dunk and quarterback run world where you're just not as prepared. So I like what you said, man, just how much time you're going to spend in it. Thinking about the nickel defense as more of a prevent is definitely a different way to look at it. I had never considered that, but really once you get out of your base, that's what it is, right? It's just, I'm trying to stop the pass. I have to do it by weakening my run defense, so we better practice it and try not to live in that world if you don't have to, I guess. That's good. That's good stuff, man. Well, Coach, we kind of checked all the boxes here. Let's get into this last piece here, what not to do as a coach.
Yeah, and what not to do with coach, I think to me, we've kind of hit on it a bunch here. You've got to be smart with this, but I think the lesson today is, don't get so conservative you start to make the game easy for your opponent. I think that's on both sides of the ball is, yes, more games are lost than won. I do believe that. I'm an old enough coach and I've seen you lose more games than you win with coaching often. Right. That being said, you don't want to get so conservative that you make things easy for an offense. Offenses are too good now for you to sit back and just let them do what they want. And I think that's kind of, to me, the biggest thing when you're playing these spread teams. You can't let them play 7-on-7 back there. Like, you cannot allow them to know you're going to be in cover 2 or cover 3 or cover 4, whatever you're going to be in, and have nothing in the guy's face. You've got to figure out as a coach, we got to take one of those away. Like, maybe both if we're good, but we got to take one of those away where he can't, his back foot hits the ground and he knows his read and the ball can come out in rhythm, or he can pat the ball a few times and take what he wants. To us, that's been the biggest growth for us defensively. And we're going to have to, we graduated a few of those kids now, so we're going to have to continue to grow in that world of how are we going to do it. We were not great in coverage this year. We had a lot of guys that was their first year playing DB. We had my son was an outside linebacker playing safety. That's what he wants to do. So we thought, okay, let's put these base rules in for our guys, but let's make our money on having a lot of ways to get pressure on the quarterback. Let's get pressure on the quarterback and cover up some of that stuff back there. Next year we bring back I think three of those guys that played DB. So we ought to be a little better on the back end. And now, we're still going to get pressure, but that's going to allow us to do more things. But I think that's the biggest thing, and to me, is understand the situation of the game. If it's a one-score game or less, I'm not a big fan of prevent in any way, shape, or form. If it's 2 scores or more, or there's less than 20 seconds on the clock, you better have something in your arsenal you can go to that your kids understand. Daniel hit the nail on the head. I think if the kids just understand the situation, have you talked to your kids about the situation in the game? Like, have you practiced the situation in the game? Do your kids understand what's going on? Because they don't watch football like you do. Like, they don't watch football. They haven't seen teams blow leads. So the first time they might see that might be when it happens to them. So if you worked with them on, yes, I know it's dig post and you're the safety and your job is to drive the first dig, but let's look at the situation right here. It's 3rd and 25. Do you think you need to drive the dig here? Well, no. You know that because you're a coach. Does your 15-year-old safety know that? Have you worked that with him? Do you have a call that lets him know not to do that? That's kind of what this whole episode was on, was have you worked the situation so that you're not going against your own rules and asking your kids to understand things they may have not ever been a part of.
Yeah, we're real big on if you don't practice it in the week, you don't run it on Friday night on the offensive side, right? Because it needs to look right. It has even I run a very modular offense, kind of like you, Kenny, right? It's very tag heavy. But you better practice those tags running together throughout the week before you try to go make it look pretty on Friday. And I think defense is the same thing. I think we expect kids can, for some reason, just play defense without all the practice, without seeing every single thing we want to run. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. Sweet. Well, let's real quick talk about the sponsors, and we'll get out of here. Ace Sports, Mark and Ryan, the guys over at Ace, are ready to help you get a video board up this year. I know you've already heard the ad at the beginning of the show, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but it is that time. So it's time to get them in front of your admin, get your people understanding what they bring to the table, and get you set up for a board. Social media-wise, I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can reach out to me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. And, of course, I have my Patreon and YouTube going. Patreon is patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. My YouTube is at Coach Chambo OK. Kenny, where are you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So FB Coach Simpson, again, if you want to look at the clinics we're doing or you want to look at headsets, over at fbcoachsimpson.com. Also, fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. If you got any questions, or you can find me on social media on Twitter. FB Coach Simpson is the handle.
Awesome. Podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod. I want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.